shoulder blades together so they're upright. I'm a bad example. Don't do as I do, do as I say. Because once you slump over, you'll see this physiologically it's very weak. If you're fencing German style, you want to be out here and you want your shoulders square because you're going to take the blade, you want to take it with minimal amount of strength, and you want to use all your physiology. Now it's a different game if you're doing fencing French and you're doing absence of blade, but if you're going to do that, and this is always good. Have your back straight, your shoulder blades together. And where's your thumb? That's another thing. So as far as blade work is concerned, again, I'm going to talk physiologically. If you do this, it's really weak. You can't take a 6 like this with any strength. It has to be like this. Okay, otherwise you're just going to have to do it, and you're going to wear yourself out. And it's not going to be effective because what happens? You open this all up. You stay out here. Another thing physiologically, if you can take a 6 or an 8, okay, 6 or an 8, and you're right-handed, your thumb should be out here, 1 o'clock. And that's still a physiological reason for strength, okay? I've modified my game dramatically because of this. And I turn my hand over because I can't extend any more than that. But we make exceptions where exceptions make sense. And if a student comes to me and says, you know, I got this problem, okay, we'll work around it. But in general, again, #1 in the world, you need to do this. And again, the reason I say that that's in certain style, I've changed the style over the past 6 months actually, and fencing with a more direct style or teaching with a more direct style. So where I was teaching more German before, I'm going back to a combination between French, Italian, and German now. Keeping it simple is very important. Again, the footwork is dramatically important. If you are engaging the blade, I'm not going to talk about deceiving the blade, but yeah, I will talk about that too. But if you're engaging the blade, you got to make sure. I talked earlier about the leverage. It's physics. It's just pure physics. If you think that you can beat me out with your brute strength, and I'm just a weak little girl, well, say I was a weak little girl, you're not going to be able to muscle me out if I have leverage. It's just pure physics. A 12-year-old could take me out if they have the right technique, as far as blade's concerned. All right? Timing is everything as well. Again, I don't want to spend too much time in actually how you're going to execute because that's your coach's job. You can't ask questions, though. You don't have to sit there on a lump on the wall. Come on, think of that right. Calvin, what do you got? What are you thinking? What? Okay, good. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. Because you guys have been sitting really good for this amount. You can use the women's bathroom, Dr. Siegel.
Yes, you can.
What are you saying to me, Chuck?
That you're a doctor. He's a doctor. All right. So, what's really important for me is that you deliver the point to the target with acceleration. Okay, what does that mean? It means that at the peak of the acceleration, when your front foot lands, front foot lands, the point should hit the target. Yeah.
Can you say that again?
Acceleration is key. Okay, we have that waveform, right? So at a certain point, if you decide to go into a flesh, you have this ramp up of acceleration. Acceleration is defined as increased speed over time. Okay, if you're not increasing the speed, then you're not accelerating. Okay, you stabilize yourself. So 0 to 60 in 60 seconds, but you can't go faster than 60, you're not going to go any faster. Okay? At that point, you're at steady state. Now, usually what happens in the flesh is you actually accelerate, you decelerate a little bit, and then go into a run. A flesh is not a run. It's not a running attack. It's different. Running attacks are not really effective. Flesh can be. So, speed over time, increased speed over time is your acceleration. You need to accelerate. At the end of your acceleration, you're going to decelerate. And I showed before, you're going to go into defensive mode at that point. It's, attack, para-repose. It seems really obvious. But what a lot of people make mistakes is they attack and then they go into the next tempo, which is a remise, being out of place. Okay? Sometimes that's the right thing to do. Many times at a local level, it's a mistake. If someone does it at the Olympics, they're probably doing it for a very good reason. They still put themselves at risk, but everything's a calculated risk. So mass times acceleration is equal to force. Do you think it's really important if you're taking an opposition or moving a blade that you want a lot of force? And the answer is yes. So your acceleration is going to give you that additional force. Mr. Siegel. Just stand there. Promise not to hit you too long. So, I'm in control now, right? From a leverage perspective. Right? I'm going to hit my opponent. What happens to my blade? This is not for you because you're
No more leverage.
I have no more leverage, right? His parry is going to be very effective. Alright? So, if I'm here and I go like this, he's just going to lift up and hit. Okay? He's going to do a 4, push it away. But if I point at so I have something. Point at hand down. This is a hand, this is a point. Right here. We have that's what you get for the Porsche. And not me not giving the Aston Martin. Okay. So here, even as I move towards the forte of his blade, I had strength.
Really strong.
Right? And I opened it up. So in a perfect action, I would do that and I'd come down and hit over the top. But again, there's an acceleration there. So everything there needs to be acceleration at the end. It can be really slow. Change-ups are wonderful things. If you start a lunge here, finish with that acceleration. Because people see you coming at this speed, then all of a sudden you're coming at a higher speed. Great action, good tempo change, nice action. Thanks. So mass times acceleration is equal to force. So as long as you get that mass, let me ask you a question. If you're doing specific actions, we love to do oppositions. Well, oppositions are less effective these days because of the change in fencing style. Many of our fencing styles have changed more towards a old school foil style, kind of repost and a lot more blade work, as opposed to the straight action, which gives you your opportunity to do an opposition. So an opposition requires that I, as the victim, need to fight you. That makes sense? If you want to hit me in an opposition, I have to fight you. Why does that make sense?
Well, you're going to have to get them to, well, actually, I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough. This is one of those things that may not be intuitively obvious.
I'm
but,
with him, by the way.
Huh?
I'm with him. I agree with him.
The question is, why do I have to fight you for you to be in control?
Because it locks it in.
You have to resist.
Yeah.
So, if I'm fighting you and I'm locked there and you got the better leverage, then I'm giving you control. If I'm there and you take me the blade and I just roll off, you can't control me with opposition. Opposition will not work unless I'm giving a counterforce. Okay? So think about that when you're doing opposition. So a lot of times what you'll see is like press 4, have the disengage, and they come out, and you want that counterforce can be directional. It could be from you, from them to you directly. All right? It doesn't have to be side to side. In fact, it's more likely it's going to come straight onto you. And you're not going to really push it away as much as deflect it. So you're deflecting that energy and pushing it aside. So as they come forward and you take the leverage and you extend, the fact that they continue on gives you the control.
You want them to commit.
You want them to overcommit. And then there's a key difference between committing and overcommitting too. Because if they do the right thing, commit, or rather commit and go, you see this shoulder lock down. Best thing I can see in a fencer, especially in a local meet, is somebody that's holding their weapon too tight. Best way because when they start holding their weapon tight, everything gets tightened up. And they can't move very fast at that point. Now this is locally. This doesn't happen at the higher levels. You do that and you try to play this type of game outside of the local levels, at the national level, you're going to get your clock beat. Okay? Or clean. Excuse my mixed metaphor. So, one of the things I'll do in a local competition, as an example, I'm not recommending this, is if I've got someone that's posting, I'll beat their blade.
What means boosting? I don't understand.
Like you do.
Holding the handle at the back by the
Okay,
pommel.
Yeah.
It's a French style. I'll show you.
Yeah, this. Only with a French. Or I think I've seen tennis handles and a whole bunch of other things. So if I had, huh?
I'm just repeating the word posting.
Posting, yeah.
It's not, as opposed to riding a horse.
We'll have to come
when
up
you
with a French
post
term
riding a
for it.
horse. Rise in the saddle when
So-
you trot.
So if you, so I'll beat the blade, beat the blade, and then it'll start slipping out of their hand. Now the good people with good skills will just do this. Huh, I don't care. The point will come right back. For the people that aren't, are using it just to get extra reach and don't have any skills with it, they'll start holding it tighter and tighter and tighter. The tighter they hold it, the more their shoulder's going to get worn out because of isometrics. And eventually you'll be able to beat, and they'll come around, and they'll be so tight that you'll be able to give them opposition hit. But that only works locally to people that have not been trained that way. You try that on him, he's going to come around and hit you in the hand.
So to use a metaphor of the conversation, in order for the press to work, these people have to stay on the same topic that you start with. You start the conversation with a particular topic. The people who roll off are people who sort of change the topic. They're off onto something else.
Well, it's like somebody screaming at you and running at you, and you just step aside.
Yeah, but they have to stay with you. In other words,
They have to want to hit you. They have to believe they're going to hit you. That's what, again, distance comes into important. So you're right here, and you just step back just enough. They continue on thinking, I just need a little bit more. Carnahan is great at that. It's like, and believe me, I thought I could get to him many times.
Yes, that's the thing.
Okay, so keep it, and we're going to keep it coming this a little bit earlier. You got to open your senses up. Yeah, basically, there's two things that's going to happen. At a longer distance, you're going to see, and subliminally, you're going to see tells in your opponent. I mean, there's always some tell. The question is whether or not you can do anything with it. If you see your opponent make a mistake that you can't take advantage of, it's not a mistake. It's just a fact. If your opponent does something that allows you to take advantage of them, that's a mistake. Don't get confused. Well, look, he can't, he can't do multiple advances. Yeah, well, he can lunge like nobody else can, and he can go halfway down the strip. I've seen lots of really good sabers do a flunge, like, yeah. So it's all good stuff. Use your peripheral vision. Don't get locked down to looking at the thread count on your opponent's jacket. You got to stay open. And another thing, in doing that, it also allows you to relax your mind as well. Because if you're looking through your opponent and you're opening your senses up, you still have to keep the intensity there, and you don't fall asleep and go into, oh, this is comfortable. But you use it, you heighten your senses, and use that peripheral vision to see movement. And your reactions, your rote reactions should take over at that point. But once you start getting, oh, my favorite, I can read body language pretty damn well. I know when you're looking at my hand as the target and get really fixated on it.
Why are you looking at me, Chuck?
Not you. I'm thinking of other people. Actually, many other people. And it only takes a split second to get fixated on that hand. You've got to open up your senses. If you get fixated on that hand for too long, that's an opportunity for me, because what I'll do is I'll show you the hand, I'll let you go for it, and all of a sudden I'll be all over you. One of my favorite actions that I've had to develop because some fencers are just too good for me, but because they're really good with point control, is this. Now, when you get fixated on the hand, you start using the hand as your distance, your point for distance too. When you fixate at something, that becomes what you're going to judge your distance from. That's great as long as I'm fencing you. So a good example is this. Now, relative to my position, my hand did not change. Did it? So if you're watching my hand for distance, you think I'm still at the same distance.
Well, you can stay at the same distance and withdraw your hand and bring them into you.
Well, you can do that too, but when they get fixated, they want to hit it and use it for distance. At this point now, my arm is faster than their legs. And then I'm just going to pop it out. You're not going to see the high-level fencers do that. They're going to be open up their senses. They're going to see everything. I'll turn that around and say, if you don't open up your senses, that's how I'm going to hit you. And some of the people in this room have been hit on that one. Okay? You've got to keep your senses open. You've got to see everything. And you've got to be in that space where everything is balanced mentally. Again, you can't do that without practice. You can't go and fence at the club every day and just goof around and then go to a meet and think you can turn it on immediately just because you know it at a conscious level. You can't think about this. You have to live this. Okay. I left the stupid part off, but keep it simple. Keeping this stuff simple is absolutely imperative in a competition. You can make it a little bit more complex in practice if you're trying to achieve a particular goal. And when I say that, every person in this room has a different comfort zone on what is simple to them. When I say keep it simple, relative to you, you don't want to say, I have to do this, or about. You want to observe what you're doing wrong, you want to correct what you're doing wrong, but it has to be in the simple to you. To me, I can change a lot of things on the fly. I've been fencing for 35 years. It's the only thing that keeps me relevant in competitions these days. If you're getting hit on the top of the arm, maybe your hand's too low on the final action. If you're getting hit below, on the bottom of the hand, maybe your hand is too high and exposing it, and your distance is wrong. I'll keep on coming back to distance. If you find some patterns that you can take advantage of in your opponent, or if you find patterns in yourself, you need to correct that. But you need to keep it simple in thought process. So when you get on the strip, it is not, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to extend, I'm going to do a double disengage and flesh. So if I use the metaphor of a conversation, you don't know what your opponent's going to say. Each tempo is your sentence. Hi, how you doing? I'm doing great. How about you? I'm going to kick your ass. Okay. But that's what it goes, and it falls back in that waveform which we showed earlier. Okay? So that conversation go back and forth. And if you don't pay attention to the conversation, you're going to get hit. What are you laughing about? If this resonates with you? A little bit? Yeah. So what we do when we're beginning fencers is different from what we do when we're mature fencers. And what we tend to do when we're first starting out is we have lessons, but we also think, oh, okay, I see what he does. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and this and this. That's great if you're drilling, but you don't have any guarantees your opponent is going to give you the same actions your coach gave you. Every action is independent of the next action. You have to do what's ever appropriate. Let's see. Okay, it's important to remember your mistakes, but you don't dwell on them in a competition. Okay, there are emotions out there that are very negative, are debilitating. I actually think anger in a controlled way is a good one. Self-pity is absolutely irrelevant. It's about adversity. It's about turning yourself around. Even if you're down, you're not done. To the end. The score could be 14-0. You aren't finished yet. And if you quit, you might as well not have stepped on the strip. It's an important concept. You can't, there's this old mantra, winners never quit and quitters never win. Well, it's absolutely true. Okay, so we have different basic strategies between 5 and 15 touch bouts. 5 touch bouts have have a set of goals rather than a singular goal. I'll talk about the whole thing. Okay. Use the field of play as your to your advantage. Okay, so this is more of a localized one as opposed to an international statement. But if you're fencing a lefty, and the lefty likes to flesh, they like to flesh on your left side. The table's a great place to fence. Really slows down their fencing.
Or the wall window.
Yeah, in terms of fleshing, right? So you can control it a little bit better there. And it's a cheap trick. You can take that away. Is you put it on the cheap trick side because it doesn't matter when you get international because the table's at the right distance. Usually on local competitions, they have the table right on the strip, which is illegal. Bring enough for everyone? So that's just one of those things. Other places use the field of play. When you have let's talk about this. When you have your opponent down here at the end of the strip, and he's almost stepping off, what's going through your mind?
Toe touch.
Okay, I'll accept that. That's a better answer than I'm going to push him off the strip. That is a bad idea.
Forcing them off the strip? Is that what you said?
I've got to force him off the strip.
The goal should not be pushing him off the strip. The goal is to hit them. If they subsequently step off the strip, that's okay. But if you start thinking about your entire set of tactics are around the goal of pushing them off the strip, you're going to get hit.
Thank you.
9 times out of 10. If you focus on hitting them and not getting hit, and by the way, I think not getting hit is more important than hitting your opponent. I'll explain that later. Then you're going to set yourself up for an attack that is totally unexpected because you're going to push them, and you're going to get in at a short distance, and they're just going to come out and long check it. By the way, it's just like a corner graph. You don't know what they're going to do when they get to the end of the strip because they know they're at the end of the strip. And if you do one thing that they don't expect or shocks them, you're going to have something that's totally unsolicited and they're going to come out at you and you're going to be surprised and not in a positive way. Okay, in a competition, in a bout, you need to use the clock. I don't like having clocks in the club or score being kept in the club because I think it undermines your training. I think you spend more time looking at the clock and at the score because the score is meaningful. It's a metric. I can figure out whether I'm getting better or not by the score. It's irrelevant in practice. In practice, it is about getting your skills improved. It's about taking that hit, finding out what your limitations are, and knowing when you've crossed them. You're going to get hit, especially when your coach teaches you a new move. You're going to get hit. You're going to get hit over and over again. But if you keep working on it and not getting worried about the score, you're going to get better and better at that move. And if that move is good for you, it's going to be really good. Yeah.
How about doing things like minute drills, 15-second drill, stuff like that? 10-second drill, whatever it is.
I think from okay, so yes. And let me say this. I have a formula.
Minute
I think you
drills.
spend 60% of your time on attacks during practice, 30% of your time on defense, and 10% on I'm going to kick the other guy's butt. You still need to have that competitive practice. You still need to have that in the club. But you minimize it. It's only 10%. Everything else is there to support that 10%. So the reason I say 60% is attack is because when you get in a hole, that's what you have to do. And you better have an attack because in your hole you got to dig yourself out without getting hit, without getting into a bigger hole. So 30% is defense, and that's strong in some way, especially when you have a better fencer on the other side. You want to go after him? I don't think so necessarily. That wouldn't normally be my plan. So let me give you a tip here. So you got a 15-touch bout. The other guy's Cody Maynard, and well, let's not use Cody. Seth Kelsey. Let's use Seth, because Seth doesn't move too much. 15 touches, direct elimination. You have one touch that you know will hit. It's the only one that's going to hit. how many touches do you need to win? You actually need zero.